Okay. My complaints are two. So usually I have way more, but this time I only have two complaints. And this one is one that we have been talking about in previous podcasts is how are you able to keep your fastest lap if there are yellow flags on the track?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm talking about Q2. Sergio Perez set his fastest lap under yellow flag conditions
Again.
and nothing happened. No warning, uh, no time deleted, no penalty, no nothing. I'm
Yeah.
like, why does this happen? We know that there are yellow flags.
Mhm.
Like, let's keep it consistent, you
But
know?
you know what I hate about this also is that like there's no explanation, and this is the type of thing that like the entire Formula One broadcasting like people they don't say anything about. And so since nobody talks about it, it never gets like
It never gets brought up like as an issue,
right.
you know?
And it's kind of like it's agreed. It's almost like it's agreed that like they're not gonna talk about it because they don't want to cause a controversy. That like they don't want to say like the FIA is doing
They don't
something
want to
wrong.
stir the pot.
Exactly.
Maybe they
Uh,
can't, probably. It's like in their contract. It's like, oh, we're the commentators. We cannot talk about shit about the sport we're commentating. We're
right.
going
Is
to lose
that
our jobs.
and so if they don't say it, the fans don't know it, and like it keeps the sport sort of in like this like always in like this gray state of like the rules, whereas we that pay attention are like, why is he keeping those labs? Like, sure, now it's not relevant now, but like it's gonna happen in the future where like the first guy puts his and it does happen, like he puts his fastest lap or like a few of the fastest laps under yellow conditions, and then he loses that time afterwards, and maybe even gets a fucking penalty for it.
Penalty, yeah. Or
Yeah,
a worst case scenario, the yellow flags are there for the safety of the people on track.
yeah,
There's somebody on the track that doesn't need to be there. There's a car, there's a driver, there's a marshal, there's something going on, and
yeah.
there's a reason there's a yellow flag. You need to slow down.
Hmm.
And there's gonna come a time where like the
Somebody doesn't.
drivers doesn't slow down, they lose control of the car, and then a worse accident happens.
Yeah,
And it's like, why doesn't this get enforced? And then we can see a track record of the FIA just sweeping it under the rug, and every
yeah,
time it gets brought up, like they just keep it hush hush.
yeah.
So
Exactly. No, yeah, and again, it reminds me a lot. I mean, and this is a very long discussion, so we don't gotta get too much into it. But of the ending of the season last year, where like we were so angry about it because it's like this is the most fuckery I've ever seen in any sport at the end of the season. Disgusting, unjust. It doesn't make any sense how they banned the rules the way they did them, and they literally took the championship from a driver. But then nobody talked about it. Absolutely nobody talked about it. None of the broadcasting people talked about it. No drivers were interviewed about it. The most you heard was like George Russell sending a tweet, and then Ricardo after the race in his radio, you could hear like, "I'm glad I'm not part of that, of all that, because
mhm.
like something messed up happened," right? That's all you heard, and then everybody kept it quiet. Everybody kept it hush hush. None of the commentators wanted to talk about it. None of the
And
podcasts
when we
talked
mean
about it.
everybody, we don't mean like the fans. We mean
Yeah,
like the media, like the people that like make the news and like inform people about Formula One. They kept it so like passive.
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this happened, and we think it's unfair, but that's what it is. And they just moved on. And I'm like, this should be like,
It should be like world news, or I don't know. It was the championship final, and they broke the rules in order to give it to another driver for the purpose of entertainment. Never has it been so blatant that they did their in purpose, because they obviously did it in purpose. Michael Massey literally let four cars pass by to Verstappen so that Verstappen could pass Hamilton because they wanted that like last lap fighting action or whatever. But it
yeah,
was against the rules, or like they were very flexible with the rules to say the least.
yes. So
And
obviously
like
that is
all of
the
that,
Go ahead.
Sorry. And all that nobody talked about. They were like, yeah, Verstappen, woo, everybody's celebrating the
Yeah,
youngest champion.
even Formula One, like Formula One is like, oh, the youngest, oh, the Max Verstappen beats Lewis Hamilton, and it's like the story about like how we have this guy that finally beat Mercedes and all that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that's not what happened, bro.
Yeah.
You guys bent the rules so you can like show this storyline,
Yeah.
and
And
it
then they
just
just
sucks.
run off with the
And it's like, oh,
storyline.
and now we're in, and now, oh, now new season, new Formula One, new cars.
Yeah,
Like that never happened.
exactly. They just showed all the clips of like Verstappen when he was a young kid, and that was the story. Like, oh, the young new kid, Verstappen wins the championship.
Yep.
But like nobody talks about how they stole it from Hamilton. Like nobody actually says that. Nobody in the media ever like was like, how did that happen? Like, why is that happen? Why can that happen in the sport? The sport, you shouldn't be able to produce that on a sport, and certainly like can make a precedent like that. And then Mercedes, eventually they retracted their own complaint. Hamilton said it was fine, and everything
Yep.
was
It's
swept
like,
under the
okay,
rug.
now we just need to move on and whatever.
And in
But
my opinion,
you
it's the
shouldn't move on
most
from it. Yeah.
is the most controversial thing that's ever happened in Formula One that nobody talks about, and that you won't hear people talking about it for like 10 years. I guarantee it, because
Yep.
it's still that fresh. But at some point,
And then
it's gonna
people
it's
always
gonna
feel like,
break.
oh, you're like, oh, you talk about it, but because you're a Hamilton fan,
Yeah,
like, oh, you're a Max Verstappen hater, and it's like it has nothing to do with Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. It has to do with the bending of the rules.
is with the integrity of the sport.
Yes,
Of,
they
of
fucked the sport up. It
yes,
has nothing to do like, oh, Lewis Hamilton lost. I don't give a shit if Lewis Hamilton lost or if Max Verstappen won. I don't give a shit about that. It's
or
like,
if Hamilton deserved
yeah,
it, or if Verstappen is better and like he
yeah,
had at that point
yeah,
raced better or whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is that like the rules were bent for entertainment and favor a driver to win a championship that like it shouldn't, that in a way in which it shouldn't happen. Verstappen could have still passed Hamilton. He could have cleared out the blue flags. He could have still gotten, I mean, and until that point, it would have been like a 50-50. But then passes Hamilton, weaves around, nobody says anything, keeps the position, and we're just supposed to like say like, oh well, that's it. I guess Verstappen won it. No, I've never seen like a more disgusting race of Formula One, and it tarnished that entire season for me. Like,
yep. It's almost like a Game of Thrones. It's like I watch all of Game of Thrones and I'm like, oh, this is a beautiful show. And then I watch the last season and it's like, oh, Game of Thrones, let's sweep it under the rug. Like
yeah.
it never happened in the history of our culture. Like Game of Thrones was like the best TV show of all time for like a period, and then like it ended, and we were like, "Oh shit, that ended like that. Let's not talk about it ever again." It felt like that. It's like we had 2021, which was an amazing season that you can rewatch over and over again. It's like, wow, every single race they're just toe to toe, fighting for the lead. Every single race crashing onto each other.
Yeah,
there's like people like sabotaging each other, like just crazy. You have people brake testing each other.
Oh yeah,
like just
the entire book of
happening.
crazy
Up until like the very last race, and then like the last race happens in the last lap, and I'm like, I don't want to watch the 2021 season ever again. It's just like it's like you ruined the entire thing.
Like the entire intensity of the season. You wanted that big climax, and it was just like taken away from us. Like that's how I feel, and I feel like anybody that goes back and watches that season with objective eyes is gonna feel that way. It's gonna feel like, oh, that's how it ended. Like they fixed it for Verstappen. I mean, not to say that Verstappen didn't deserve it. He couldn't close the gap to Hamilton the entire race, but he had that safety car. Lucky for him at the end. But then they just literally gave it to him. Just literally gave it to him, and then allowed him to weave, allowed him to keep that position. Hamilton was like on all tires. It was I don't know. Again, I could talk about this for hours of like the different things that happened in that race, that and in that entire season that were like completely bonkers. But we can call it there. We can
but so the complaining, if we go back to like the yellow flag thing, it's the same thing. It's like it's not as big as what happened last season,
Yeah.
but it just keeps setting precedents. And like I know there's small ones and they just sweep them under the rug. It's like these
Yeah.
are part of the rules. You cannot just get a guy or any driver, and it's been happening for the past races as well, that like there's yellow flag conditions and then drivers are setting their fastest times.
Mhm.
It's like it's there for a reason, because at some point something bad's gonna happen, and then like you're gonna be like, oh, this never happened before.
And
It's like, bro, we've been saying it every single time that it occurs.
Yeah,
and
every
you
single.
just keep it
And
under
last
the rug.
weekend there was a double yellow flag, Albon on the field. Nobody got a
A
penalty.
stroll on the field.
I thought it was Albon on the last lap.
It was because of the Stroll and Albon incident, but yeah, I don't know which one was it.
I thought, because I thought Albon had to pull over because he like destroyed
Yeah,
his front tire.
Yeah,
It
one
doesn't
of the
matter.
yeah.
Yes, but there was a yellow, double yellow, and then there were still drivers setting like their fastest times. Just give everybody a penalty. I mean, that's what should happen. You setting a really bad precedent by not allowing or by not punishing drivers for that type of behavior. So yeah, we'll keep saying it, and you know we've been predicting a lot of stuff in this thing. I hope that that's not what we're predicting here,
Yeah,
because like
yeah,
it
I don't
could
want
be
to say nothing.
very
Yeah.
dangerous. Yeah.
So that was my complaint, and that was my first complaint.
You said you had two, right?
I had two complaints, so I'm going
Okay,
now into my second complaint.
All right, what's
My second complaint on the Australian Grand Prix that you probably noticed, but I'm gonna bring now to light, is that you had the main DRS on the main straight, and then the second DRS didn't aid the car behind if they were overtaken on the first turn. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you.
So if you are the car
Okay.
like in front on the main
Uh-huh.
straight, and then the car behind you is coming with DRS, they overtake you onto that first turn.
Yeah.
But then on the second DRS zone, the car that now just overtook you has DRS, and you in the back, you don't have it.
Okay.
Because the detection point is on the main straight.
Mhm.
When like you made the overtake, you are not clear of the car that you're overtaking yet. Therefore, you get double DRS.
Yeah.
So my complaint there is that although, yeah, it is nice that you added DRS zones to the Australian Grand Prix, the idea was for it to aid the racing. And although the racing was better, once a driver made an overtake on turn one,
Mhm.
the car that just got overtook didn't have a way to fight back into the next DRS zone.
I say no. I'm gonna disagree with you on this one.
I think the DRS detection point should be after the turn, not on the main straight. That way, if you get overtaken, you can still fight back for that position.
I think maybe it should be closer to the turn, maybe.
Like if you look at races like Saudi Arabia, in the last turn, right? You have the DRS zone, and then we had the DRS chicken with Leclerc and Verstappen. But like you're coming onto DRS, and then you can overtake that car, and then once you're coming into the main straight, the car that just got overtaken has now DRS and can fight back, and they can fight each other. If you look at Bahrain, it's also the same thing. You have turn one, people use the DRS, and then on the next DRS zone, even though you were just overtaken, you have DRS to fight back for that position, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't the
sometimes.
case
Sometimes.
yeah, sometimes. I know it's not like a black and white thing. I'm just
Yeah.
saying in Australia, I was hoping like, oh, he just got overtaken in turn one. But now, because he's on the second DRS zone, he's gonna get DRS to be able to fight back. And that just never happened. So it's just like a little complaint. I didn't like it because I wanted to see closer racing, but it just meant that like whoever overtook on turn one was gonna get DRS on the second zone, and therefore like they would be even farther ahead.
I mean, yes and no. I feel like there is races in which I feel like it matters, and like you could see that being an issue, but I don't know. For the most part, I'm like, I think it's fine. I think I like that when you pass somebody, that sometimes that you get the DRS afterwards. I think it feels okay. Like it feels like, yeah, it's still a way for the driver that was behind to get past the slower car. And also, I mean, I don't know. If you're racing and you're behind on the first turn, you can strategize to try to take over after the on the second DRS zone, kind of like in Bahrain, kind of like what Charles
Yes.
Leclerc was doing. Uh, so I don't know, because you can also like try to be slower on the main straight and then try to pass afterwards. That's usually how you do it in the game. Actually, conventionally speaking, you will try to get closer on the first, and then on the second one you're still behind, but you get that run into turn three, and then you're able to make the pass. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I could see it going either way. To me, it's never been an issue. To me, I always just thought it was more of a sort of track specific type of thing, where like the measurement of the DRS was just like it was placed like that because it had to be placed like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. I could see it going either way.
Okay. But yeah, that was my second complaint. It wasn't as
Okay.
big as the first one, but just something that annoyed me. But
Okay.
it doesn't have to be, it's not like the greatest complaint ever, just like a little annoyance.
A little annoyance. Got
Yeah.
it.
All right.